And now Chapter 3 of the Madhya-lila, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's stay at the house of Advaita Acharya. After accepting the sannyas order of life, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, out of intense love for Krishna, wanted to go to Vrindavan, but apparently by mistake, he wandered in the Radha Desh. Later he arrived at Shantipur and enjoyed himself there with his devotees. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya headed by Srivas. At the end of his 24th year, in the month of Magha, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyas order during the waxing period of the moon. After accepting the sannyas order, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of intense love for Krishna, started for Vrindavan. However, he mistakenly wandered about in a trance continuously for 3 days in the tract of land known as Radha Desh, or that part of Bengal on the western side of the Ganges River. Passing through the tract of land known as Radha Desh, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited the following verse in ecstasy. I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas, who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approved the purport of this verse on account of the determination of the mendicant devotee to engage in the service of Lord Mukunda. He gave his special approval of this verse, indicating that it was very good. The real purpose of accepting sannyas is to dedicate oneself to the service of Mukunda. By serving Mukunda, one can actually be liberated from the bondage of material existence. After accepting the sannyas order, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to go to Vrindavan and engage himself wholly and solely in the service of Mukunda in a solitary place. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was en route to Vrindavan, all the ecstatic symptoms became manifest, and he did not know in which direction he was going, nor did he know whether it was day or night. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went toward Vrindavan, Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhar, and Prabhu Mukunda followed him. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed through the Radha Desh, whoever saw him in ecstasy exclaimed, Hari! Hari! As they chanted this with the Lord, all the unhappiness of material existence diminished. All the cowherd boys who saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passing joined with him and began to shout loudly, Hari! Hari! When he heard all the cowherd boys also chanting Hari! Hari, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased. He approached them, put his hand on their heads, and said, Go on chanting like that. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus blessed them all, after saying that they were all fortunate. In this way he praised them, and he felt very successful because they chanted the holy name of Lord Hari. Calling all the boys in confidence and telling a reasonable story, Nityananda Prabhu instructed them as follows. If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks you about the path to Vrindavan, please show him the path on the bank of the Ganges instead. When the cowherd boys were questioned by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the path to Vrindavan, the boys showed him the path on the bank of the Ganges, and the Lord went that way in ecstasy. As the Lord proceeded along the bank of the Ganges, Sri Nityananda Prabhu requested Acharya Ratna, or Chandrasekhar Acharya, to go immediately to the house of Advaita Acharya. Sri Nityananda Goswami told him, I shall take Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the bank of the Ganges at Shantipur, and Advaita Acharya should carefully stay there on the shore with a boat. After that, Nityananda Prabhu continued, I shall go to Advaita Acharya's house, and you should go to Navadvip and return with Mother Sachi and all the other devotees. After sending Acharya Ratna to the house of Advaita Acharya, Sri Nityananda Prabhu went before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and gave notice of his coming. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in ecstasy, and he asked where Nityananda Prabhu was going. Nityananda replied that he was going with him toward Vrindavan. When the Lord asked Nityananda Prabhu how far it was to Vrindavan, Nityananda replied, Just see, here is the river Yamuna. Saying this, Nityananda Prabhu took Chaitanya Mahaprabhu near the Ganges, and the Lord, in his ecstasy, accepted the river Ganges as the river Yamuna. The Lord said, Oh, what good fortune! Now I have seen the river Yamuna. Thus thinking the Ganges to be the river Yamuna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to offer prayers to it. O river Yamuna, you are the blissful spiritual water that gives love to the son of Nanda Maharaj. You are the same as the water of the spiritual world, for you can vanquish all our offenses and the sinful reactions incurred in life. You are the creator of all auspicious things in the world. O daughter of the sun god, kindly purify us by your pious activities. After reciting this mantra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered obeisances and took his bath in the Ganges. At that time he had on only one piece of underwear, for there was no second garment. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was standing there without a second garment, Sri Advaita Acharya arrived on a boat, bringing with him new underwear and external garments. When Advaita Acharya arrived, he stood before the Lord and offered his obeisances. After seeing him, the Lord began to wonder about the entire situation. Still in his ecstasy, the Lord began asking Advaita Acharya, Why did you come here? How did you know that I was in Vrindavan? Advaita Acharya disclosed the whole situation, telling Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. Now it is my great fortune that you have come to the bank of the Ganges. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, Nityananda has cheated me. He has brought me to the bank of the Ganges and told me that it was the Yamuna. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accused Nityananda of cheating him, Srila Advaita Acharya said, Whatever Nityananda Prabhu told you is not false. You have indeed just now taken your bath in the river Yamuna. Advaita Acharya then explained that at that spot both the Ganges and the Yamuna flow together. On the western side was the Yamuna, and on the eastern side was the Ganges. Advaita Acharya then suggested that since Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken his bath in the river Yamuna, and his underwear was now wet, the Lord should change his underwear for dry garments. Advaita Acharya said, You have been fasting continuously for 3 days in your ecstasy of love for Krishna. I therefore invite you to my home, where you may kindly take your alms. Come with me to my residence. At my home, I have just cooked 1 palmful of rice. That's all. just one palmful. The vegetables are always very simple. There is no luxurious cooking, simply a little liquid vegetable and spinach." Saying this, Sri Advaita Acharya took the Lord into the boat and brought the Lord to his residence. There Advaita Acharya washed the feet of the Lord and was consequently very happy within. All the edibles were first cooked by the wife of Advaita Acharya. Then Srila Advaita Acharya personally offered everything to Lord Vishnu. All the prepared foods were divided into 3 equal parts. One part was arranged on a metal plate for offering to Lord Krishna. Of the 3 divisions, one was arranged on a metal plate, and the other 2 were arranged on plantain leaves. These leaves were not bifurcated, and they were taken from a banana tree that held at least 32 bunches of bananas. The 2 plates were filled very nicely with the kinds of food described below. The cooked rice was a stack of very fine grains, nicely cooked, and in the middle was yellow butter, clarified from the milk of cows. Surrounding the stack of rice were pots made of the skins of banana trees, and in these pots were varieties of vegetables and mung dal. Among the cooked vegetables were patalas, squash, manakachu, and a salad made with pieces of ginger and various types of spinach. There was sukta, bitter melon mixed with all kinds of vegetables, defying the taste of nectar. There were 5 types of bitter and pungent suktas. Amongst the various vegetables were newly grown leaves of nimba trees fried with eggplant. The fruit known as patola was fried with pula badi, a kind of dal preparation first mashed and then dried in the sun. There was also a preparation known as kuzmanda manachaki. The preparation made with coconut pulp mixed with curd and rock candy was very sweet. There was a curry made of banana flowers and squash boiled in milk, all in great quantity. There were small cakes in sweet and sour sauce, and 5 or 6 kinds of sour preparations. All the vegetables were so made that everyone present could take prasad. There were soft cakes made with mung dal, soft cakes made with ripe bananas, and soft cakes made with urad dal. There were various kinds of sweetmeats, and condensed milk mixed with rice cakes, a coconut preparation, and every kind of cake desirable. All the vegetables were served in pots made of banana leaves, taken from trees producing at least 32 bunches of bananas. These pots were very strong and big, and did not tilt or totter. All around the 3 eating places were 100 pots filled with various kinds of vegetables. Along with the various vegetables was sweet rice mixed with ghee. This was kept in new earthen pots. Earthen pots filled with highly condensed milk were placed in 3 places. Besides the other preparations, there were chipped rice made with milk and mixed with bananas, and white squash boiled in milk. Indeed, it is not possible to describe all the preparations that were made. In 2 places there were earthen pots filled with another preparation made with yogurt, sandesh, which is a sweetmeat made with curd, and banana. I am unable to describe it all. Upon the stack of boiled rice and all the vegetables were flowers of the tulsi tree. There were also pots filled with scented rose water. There were 3 sitting places where soft cloths were placed. Thus Lord Krishna was offered all the foodstuffs, and the Lord took it very pleasantly. It is the system after offering food to perform Bhog Arti. Advaita Prabhu asked the two brothers, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, to come see the arti. The two lords and all others present went to see the arti ceremony. After arti was performed for the deities in the temple, Lord Krishna was made to lie down to rest. Advaita Acharya then came out to submit something to Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Advaita Prabhu said, "My dear lords, kindly enter this room." The two brothers, Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, then came forward to take the prasad. When Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu went to accept the prasad, they both called Mukunda and Haridas to come with them. However, Mukunda and Haridas, both with folded hands, spoke as follows. When Mukunda was called for, he submitted, "My dear sir, I have something to do that is not yet finished. Later I shall accept the prasad, so you two Prabhus should now please enter the room." Haridas Thakur said, "I am the most sinful and lowest among men. Later I shall eat one palmful of prasad while waiting outside." Advaita Acharya took Lord Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu within the room, and the two lords saw the arrangement of the prasad. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was especially very much pleased. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu approved of all the methods employed in cooking and offering food to Krishna. Indeed, he was so pleased that he said, "Frankly, I will personally take the lotus feet of anyone who can offer Krishna such nice food, and place those lotus feet on my head birth after birth." When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu entered the room, he saw 3 divisions of food, and he knew that all of these were meant for Krishna. However, he did not understand the intentions of Advaita Acharya. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Let us sit down in these 3 places, and we shall take prasad." However, Advaita Acharya said, "I shall distribute the prasad." Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu thought that all 3 servings were meant for distribution. Therefore, he asked for another 2 banana leaves, saying, "Let us have a very little quantity of vegetable and rice." Advaita Acharya said, "Just sit down here on these seats." Catching their hands, he sat them both down. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "It is not proper for a sannyasi to eat such a variety of foodstuff. If he does, how can he control his senses?" When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept the food that had already been served, Advaita Acharya said, "Please give up your concealment. I know what you are, and I know the confidential meaning of your accepting the sannyas order." Advaita Acharya thus requested Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to eat and give up juggling words. The Lord replied, "I certainly cannot eat so much food." Advaita Acharya then requested the Lord to simply accept the prasad without pretense. If he could not eat it all, the balance could be left on the plate. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I will not be able to eat so much food, and it is not the duty of a sannyasi to leave remnants." In this connection, Advaita Acharya referred to Caitanya Mahaprabhu's eating at Jagannath Puri. Lord Jagannath and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu are identical. Advaita Acharya pointed out that at Jagannath Puri, Caitanya Mahaprabhu ate 54 times, and each time he ate many hundreds of pots of food. Sri Advaita Acharya said, "The amount of food that 3 people can eat does not constitute even a morsel for you. In proportion to that, these edibles are not even 5 morsels of food for you. By my good fortune, you have just come to my home. Please do not juggle words. Just begin eating and do not talk." Upon saying this, Advaita Acharya supplied water to the 2 lords so that they could wash their hands. The 2 lords then sat down and, smiling, began to eat the prasad. The two lords then sat down and, smiling, began to eat the prasad. Nityananda Prabhu said, "I have undergone fasting for 3 days continuously. Today I hope to break my fast." Although Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was thinking that the quantity of food was enormous, Nityananda Prabhu, on the contrary, thought it not even a morsel. He had been fasting for 3 days, and had greatly hoped to break fast on that day. Indeed, he said, "Although I am invited to eat by Advaita Acharya, today also is a fast. So small a quantity of foodstuffs will not even fill half of my belly." Advaita Acharya replied, "Sir, you are a mendicant traveling on pilgrimages. Sometimes you eat fruits and roots, and sometimes you simply go on fasting. I am a poor Brahmin, and you have come to my home. Please be satisfied with whatever little foodstuffs you have received, and give up your greedy mentality." Lord Nityananda Prabhu replied, "Whatever I may be, you have invited me. Therefore you must supply as much as I want to eat." His Divine Grace Advaita Acharya, after hearing the statement of Nityananda Prabhu, took the opportunity presented by the joking words and spoke to him as follows. He said, "You are a reject Paramahansa, and you have accepted the renounced order of life just to fill up your belly. I can understand that your business is to give trouble to Brahmins. You can eat 40 to 80 kilos of rice. I am a poor Brahmin. How shall I get so much rice? Whatever you have, though it be a palmful of rice, please eat it and get up. Don't show your madness and strew the remnants of food here and there." In this way, Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu ate and talked with Advaita Acharya jokingly. After eating half of each vegetable preparation given to him, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu abandoned it and went on to the next. As soon as half of the vegetable in the pot was finished, Advaita Acharya filled it up again. In this way, as the Lord finished half of a preparation, Advaita Acharya again and again filled it up. After filling a pot with vegetables, Advaita Acharya requested them to eat more, and Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "How much more can I go on eating?" Advaita Acharya said, "Please do not give up whatever I have already given you. Now, whatever I am giving, you may eat half and leave half." In this way, by submitting various humble requests, Advaita Acharya made Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda eat. Thus Caitanya Mahaprabhu fulfilled all the desires of Advaita Acharya. Again, Nityananda Prabhu jokingly said, "My belly is not yet filled up. Please take away your foodstuff. I have not taken the least of it." After saying this, Nityananda Prabhu took a handful of rice and threw it on the floor in front of him as if he were angry. When 2 or 4 pieces of the thrown rice touched his body, Advaita Acharya began to dance in various ways with the rice still stuck to his body. When the rice thrown by Nityananda Prabhu touched his body, Advaita Acharya thought himself purified by the touch of remnants thrown by Paramahansa Nityananda. Therefore he began dancing. Advaita Acharya jokingly said, "My dear Nityananda, I invited you, and indeed I have received the results. You have no fixed caste or dynasty. By nature you are a madman. To make me a madman like yourself, you have thrown the remnants of your food at me. You did not even fear the fact that I am a Brahmin." Nityananda Prabhu replied, "These are the remnants of food left by Lord Krishna. If you take them to be ordinary remnants, you have committed an offense. But if you invite at least 100 sannyasis to your home and feed them sumptuously, your offense will be nullified." Advaita Acharya replied,
I shall never again invite another sannyasi, for it is a sannyasi who has spoiled all my Brahminical Smriti regulations."
After this, Advaita Acharya made the lords wash their hands and mouths. He then took them to a nice bed and made them lie down to take rest. Sri Advaita Acharya fed the two lords cloves and cardamom mixed with tulsi flowers. Thus there was a good flavor within their mouths. Sri Advaita Acharya then smeared the bodies of the lords with sandalwood pulp, and then placed very fragrant flower garlands on their chests. When the Lord lay down on the bed, Advaita Acharya wanted to massage his legs, but the Lord was very hesitant and spoke as follows to Advaita Acharya. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Advaita Acharya, you have made me dance in various ways. Now give up this practice. Go with Mukunda and Haridas and accept your lunch." Thereupon Advaita Acharya took prasad with Mukunda and Haridas, and they all wholeheartedly ate as much as they desired. When the people of Shantipur heard that Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there, they all immediately came to see his lotus feet. Being very pleased, all the people loudly began to shout the holy name of the Lord, "Hari, Hari!" Indeed, they became struck with wonder upon seeing the beauty of the Lord. They saw Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's very fair-complexioned body and its bright luster, which conquered the brilliance of the sun. Over and above this was the beauty of the saffron garments that glittered upon his body. People came and went with great pleasure. There was no calculating how many people assembled there before the day was over. As soon as it was evening, Advaita Acharya began the congregational chanting. He even began to dance himself, and the Lord saw the performance. When Advaita Acharya began to dance, Nityananda Prabhu began dancing behind him. Haridas Thakur, being very pleased, also began dancing behind him. Advaita Acharya said, "My dear friends, what shall I say? Today I have received the highest transcendental pleasure. After many, many days, Lord Krishna is in my house." Advaita Acharya led the Sankirtan party, and with great pleasure he sang this verse. There was a manifestation of ecstatic perspiration, shivering, raised hairs, tears in the eyes, and sometimes thundering and bellowing. While dancing, Advaita Acharya would sometimes turn around and catch the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He then began to speak to him as follows. "Many days you have escaped me by bluffing. Now I have you in my home, and I will keep you bound up." So speaking, Advaita Acharya performed congregational chanting with great pleasure for 3 hours that night and danced all the time. When Advaita Acharya danced in that way, Lord Chaitanya felt ecstatic love for Krishna, and because of his separation, the waves and flames of love increased. Being agitated by the ecstasy, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly fell on the ground. Seeing this, Advaita Acharya stopped dancing. When Mukunda saw the ecstasy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he understood the feelings of the Lord and began to sing many stanzas augmenting the force of the Lord's ecstasy. Advaita Acharya raised the body of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to help him dance, but the Lord, after hearing the stanzas sung by Mukunda, could not be held
due to his bodily symptoms. Tears fell from his eyes, and his whole body trembled. His hair stood on end, he perspired heavily, and his words faltered. Sometimes he stood, and sometimes he fell, and sometimes he cried. Mukunda sang, "My dear intimate friend, what has not happened to me? Due to the effects of the poison of love for Krishna, my body and mind have been severely afflicted. My feeling is like this. My mind burns day and night, and I can get no rest. If there was some place I could go to meet Krishna, I would immediately fly there." This stanza was sung by Mukunda in a very sweet voice. But as soon as Caitanya Mahaprabhu heard this stanza, his mind went to pieces. The transcendental ecstatic symptoms of disappointment, moroseness, pleasure, restlessness, pride, and humility all began to fight like soldiers within the Lord. The entire body of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu began to totter due to the onslaught of various ecstatic symptoms. As a result, he immediately fell on the ground, and his breathing almost stopped. Upon seeing the condition of the Lord, all the devotees became very anxious. Then suddenly the Lord got up and began to make thundering sounds. Upon standing up, the Lord said, "Go on speaking! Go on speaking!" Thus he began to dance, overwhelmed with pleasure. No one could understand the strong waves of his ecstasy. Lord Nityananda began to walk with Caitanya Mahaprabhu to see that he would not fall, and Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur followed them, dancing. In this way, the Lord danced for at least 3 hours. Sometimes the symptoms of ecstasy were visible, including pleasure, moroseness, and many other waves of ecstatic emotional love. The Lord had been fasting for 3 days, and after that period he took edibles sumptuously. Thus, when he danced and jumped high, he became a little fatigued. Being fully absorbed in love of Godhead, he would not understand his fatigue. But Nityananda Prabhu, catching him, stopped his dancing. Although the Lord was fatigued, Nityananda Prabhu kept him steady by holding him. At that time, Advaita Acharya suspended the chanting and, by rendering various services to the Lord, made him lie down to take rest. For 10 continuous days, Advaita Acharya held feasting and chanting in the evening. He served the Lord in this way without any change. In the morning, Chandrasekhar brought Shachi Mata from her house with many devotees and seated her in a palanquin. In this way, all the people of the town of Nadia, including all women, boys, and old men, came there. Thus the crowd increased. In the morning, after regular duties were completed, and the Lord was chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the people accompanied Shachi Mata to the house of Advaita Acharya. As soon as Mother Shachi appeared on the scene, Caitanya Mahaprabhu fell before her like a stick. Mother Shachi began to cry, taking the Lord on her lap. Upon seeing one another, they both became overwhelmed. Seeing the Lord's head without hair, Mother Shachi became greatly agitated. She began to smear the body of the Lord with kisses. Sometimes she kissed his face and tried to observe him carefully, but because her eyes were filled with tears, she could not see. Understanding that Lord Chaitanya had accepted the renounced order of life, Shachi Mata, crying, said to the Lord, "My darling Nimai, Do not be cruel like Vishwarup, your elder brother. After accepting the renounced order, Vishwarup never again gave me an audience. If you do like him, that will certainly be the death of me."
The Lord replied, "My dear mother, please hear. This body belongs to you. I do not possess anything. This body was raised by you, and it comes from you. I cannot repay this debt even in millions of births. Knowingly or unknowingly, I have accepted this renounced order. Still, I shall never be indifferent to you. My dear mother, wherever you ask me to stay, I shall stay, and whatever you order, I shall execute." Saying this, the Lord offered obeisances to his mother again and again, and Mother Shachi, being pleased, took him again and again on her lap. Then Advaitacharya took Mother Shachi within the house. The Lord was immediately ready to meet all the devotees. The Lord met all the devotees one after the other, and looking at everyone's face individually, he embraced them tightly. Although the devotees were unhappy at not seeing the Lord's hair, they nonetheless derived great happiness from seeing his beauty. Shrivas, Ramai, Vidyanidhi, Gadadhar, Gangadas, Vakrishvar, Murari, Suklambar, Buddhimanta Khan, Nandan, Sridhar, Vijaya, Vasudev, Damodar, Mukunda, Sanjaya, and all the others, however many I can mention. Indeed, all the inhabitants of Navadvip arrived there, and the Lord met them with smiles and glances of mercy. Everyone was dancing and chanting the holy names of Hari. In this way, the domicile of Advaitacharya was converted into Vaikuntha Puri. People came to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu from various other villages nearby, as well as Navadvip. To everyone who came to see the Lord from villages nearby, especially from Navadvip, Advaitacharya gave residential quarters as well as all kinds of edibles for many days. Indeed, he properly adjusted everything. The supplies of Advaitacharya were inexhaustible and indestructible. As many goods and commodities as he used, just as many again appeared. From the day Shachimata arrived at the house of Advaitacharya, she took charge of the cooking, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dined in the company of all the devotees. All the people who came there during the day saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the friendly behavior of Advaitacharya. At night, they had the opportunity to see the Lord's dancing and hear his chanting. When the Lord performed kirtan, he manifested all kinds of transcendental symptoms. He appeared stunned and trembling. His hair stood on end, and his voice faltered. There were tears and devastation. Frequently, the Lord would tumble to the ground. Seeing this, Mother Shachi would cry. Srimati Shachimata thought that the body of Nimai was being smashed when he fell down so. She cried, "Alas!" and petitioned Lord Vishnu as follows. "My dear Lord, kindly bestow this benediction as a result of whatever service I have rendered unto you from my childhood. Wherever Nimai falls to the surface of the earth, please do not let him feel any pain." When Mother Shachi was thus overwhelmed in maternal love for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she became transformed with happiness, fear, and humility, as well as bodily symptoms. Since Advaita Acharya was giving alms and food to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the other devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur, also desired to give him alms and invite him for lunch. Hearing these proposals made by other devotees of the Lord, Mother Shachi said to the devotees, "How many times shall I get the chance to see Nimai again? As far as you are concerned, you can meet Nimai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, many times somewhere else,
But what is the possibility of my ever meeting him again? I shall have to remain at home. A sannyasi never returns to his home.
Mother Sachi appealed to all the devotees to give her this charity. As long as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu remained at the house of Advaitacharya, only she would supply him food. Hearing this appeal from Mother Sachi, all the devotees offered obeisances and said, "We all agree to whatever Mother Sachi desires." When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw his mother's great eagerness, he became a little agitated. He therefore assembled all the devotees present and spoke to them. He said, "Without your order, I tried to go to Vrindavan. There was some obstacle, however, and I had to return. My dear friends, although I have suddenly accepted this renounced order, I still know that I shall never be indifferent to you. My dear friends, as long as I remain manifest, I shall never give you up, nor shall I be able to give up my mother. After accepting sannyas, it is not the duty of a sannyas to remain at his birthplace encircled by relatives. Make some arrangement so that I may not leave you, and at the same time people may not blame me for remaining with relatives after taking sannyas." After hearing Lord Chaitanya's statement, all the devotees, headed by Advaitacharya, approached Mother Sachi. When they submitted Lord Chaitanya's statement, Mother Sachi, who is the mother of the universe, began to speak. Sachi Mata said, "It will be a great happiness for me if Nimai Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu stays here. But at the same time, if someone blames him, it will be my great unhappiness. This consideration is good. In my opinion, if Nimai remains at Jagannath Puri, he may not leave any one of us, and at the same time can remain aloof as a sannyasi. Thus both purposes are fulfilled. Since Jagannath Puri and Navadvip are intimately related, as if they were two rooms in the same house, people from Navadvip generally go to Jagannath Puri, and those in Jagannath Puri go to Navadvip. This going and coming will help carry news of Lord Chaitanya. In this way, I will be able to get news of him. All you devotees will be able to come and go, and sometimes he may also come to take his bath in the Ganges. I do not care for my personal happiness or unhappiness, but only for his happiness. Indeed, I accept his happiness as my happiness." After hearing Sachi Mata, all the devotees offered her prayers and assured her that her order, like a Vedic injunction, could not be violated. All the devotees informed Lord Chaitanya of Sachi Mata's decision. Hearing it, the Lord became very pleased. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu offered respects to all the devotees present from Navadvip and other towns, speaking to them as follows. "My dear friends, you are all my intimate friends. Now I am begging a favor of you. Please give it to me." Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested them all to return home and begin chanting the holy name congregationally. He also requested them to worship Krishna, chant his holy name, and discuss his holy pastimes. After thus instructing the devotees, the Lord asked their permission to go to Jagannath Puri. He assured them that at intervals he would come there and meet them again and again. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, offering due respects to all the devotees and smiling very mildly, bid them farewell. After requesting all the devotees to return home, the Lord decided to go to Jagannath Puri. At that time, Haridas Thakur began to cry and speak some pathetic words. he said,
"You are going to Jagannath Puri, and that is all right, but what will be my destination? I am not able to go to Jagannath Puri, because I am the lowest among men. I shall not be able to see you. How shall I maintain my sinful life?"
The Lord replied to Haridas Thakur, "Oh, please check your humility. Just by seeing your humility, my mind becomes very much agitated." Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assured Haridas Thakur that he would place a petition before Lord Jagannath, and that he would certainly take him there to Jagannath Puri. After that, Advaitacharya respectfully requested Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to show him mercy by remaining another 2 to 4 days. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never violated the request of Advaitacharya. Therefore he remained at his home and did not leave immediately for Jagannath Puri. Lord Chaitanya's decision was received very happily by Advaitacharya, Mother Shachi, and all the devotees. Advaitacharya celebrated every day with a great festival. During the day, the devotees discussed subject matters concerning Krishna, and at night there was a great festival of congregational chanting at the house of Advaitacharya. Mother Shachi cooked with great pleasure, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with the devotees, accepted the prasad with great pleasure. In this way, all the opulences of Advaitacharya, his faith, devotion, home, riches, and everything else were successfully utilized in the worship of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As Mother Shachi constantly saw the face of her son and fed him, her own happiness increased and was indeed complete. In this way, at Advaita Acharya's house, all the devotees met and passed some days together in a greatly festive mood. The next day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested all the devotees to return to their respective homes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also asked them to execute the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord at their homes, and he assured them that they would be able to meet him again. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told them, "Sometimes you will come to Jagannath Puri, and sometimes I shall come to bathe in the Ganges." Sri Advaitacharya sent 4 persons, Nityananda Goswami, Jagadananda Pandit, Damodar Pandit, and Mukunda Dutt, to accompany the Lord. After pacifying his mother Shachi Mata, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu submitted prayers to her lotus feet. When everything was arranged, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu circumambulated his mother and then started for Jagannath Puri. In the house of Advaitacharya there arose tumultuous crying. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was unaffected. He left swiftly, and Advaitacharya followed him weeping. After he had followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for some distance, Advaitacharya was petitioned by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with folded hands. The Lord spoke the following sweet words: "Please pacify all the devotees and my mother. If you become agitated, no one will be able to continue to exist." Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Advaitacharya and stopped him from following any further. Then, without anxiety, he proceeded to Jagannath Puri. The Lord, with the other 4 persons, went along the banks of the Ganges through the path of Chhatrabhog toward Niladri, Jagannath Puri. In his book, known as Chaitanya Mangal or Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur has elaborately described the Lord's passage to Jagannath Puri. If one hears of the activities of the Lord at the house of Advaitacharya, he will certainly very soon attain the riches of love of Krishna. praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Caitanya Cartamrita, following in their footsteps. This ends Chapter 3 of the Madhya-lila, Lord Chaitanya at the house of Advaitacharya. And now Chapter 4 of the Madhya-lila, Sri Madhavendra Puri's devotional service.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto Madhavendra Puri, who is given a pot of sweet rice stolen by Sri Gopinath, celebrated thereafter as Kshira Kora. Being pleased by Madhavendra Puri's love, Sri Gopal, the deity at Govardhan, appeared to the public vision. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Prabhu. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. The Lord went to Jagannath Puri and visited Lord Jagannath's temple. He also met with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. All these pastimes have been very elaborately explained by Vrindavan Das Thakur in his book Chaitanya Bhagavat. By nature, all the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very wonderful and sweet. And when they are described by Vrindavan Das Thakur, they become like a shower of nectar. Therefore, I very humbly submit that since these incidents have already been nicely described by Vrindavan Das Thakur, I would be very proud to repeat the same thing, and this would not be very good. I do not have such powers. I am therefore presenting in short codes all those events already described in the Chaitanya Mangal, now known as Chaitanya Bhagavat, by Vrindavan Das Thakur. Some of the incidents in his codes he did not describe elaborately, and so I shall try to describe them in this book. I thus offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Vrindavan Das Thakur. I hope that I will not offend his lotus feet by this action. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proceeded toward Jagannath Puri with 4 of his devotees, and he chanted the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna mantra, with great eagerness. Each day Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally went to a village and collected a great quantity of rice and other grains for the preparation of prasad. There were many rivers on the way, and at each river there was a tax collector. They did not hinder the Lord, however, and he showed them mercy. Finally, he reached the village of Remuna. The deity of Gopinath in the temple at Remuna was very attractive. Lord Chaitanya visited the temple and offered his obeisances with great devotion. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his obeisances at the lotus feet of the Gopinath deity, the helmet of flowers on the head of Gopinath fell down and landed on the head of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the deity's helmet fell upon his head, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very pleased, and thus he chanted and danced in various ways with his devotees. All the servants of the deity were struck with wonder
due to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's intense love, his exquisite beauty, and his transcendental qualities. Because of their love for Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they served him in many ways, and that night the Lord stayed at the temple of Gopinath. The Lord remained there because he was very eager to receive the remnants of sweet rice offered to the Gopinath deity, having heard a narration from his spiritual master, Ishvar Puri, of what had once happened there. That deity was known widely as Kshira Kora Gopinath, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his devotees the story of how the deity became so famous. Formerly, the deity had stolen a pot of sweet rice for Madhavendra Puri. Therefore, he became very famous as the Lord who stole the sweet rice. Once, Sri Madhavendra Puri traveled to Vrindavan, where he came upon the hill known as Govardhan. Madhavendra Puri was almost mad in his ecstasy of love of Godhead, and he did not know whether it was day or night. Sometimes he stood up, and sometimes he fell to the ground. He could not discriminate whether he was in a proper place or not. After circumambulating the hill, Madhavendra Puri went to Govindakund and took his bath. He then sat beneath a tree to take his evening rest. While he was sitting beneath a tree, an unknown cowherd boy came with a pot of milk, placed it before Madhavendra Puri, and, smiling, addressed him as follows.
Please drink the milk I have brought. Why don't you beg some food to eat? What kind of meditation are you undergoing? When he saw the beauty of that boy, Madhavendra Puri became very satisfied. Hearing his sweet words, he forgot all hunger and thirst. Madhavendra Puri said, "Who are you? Where do you reside? And how did you know that I was fasting?" The boy replied, "Sir, I am a cowherd boy, and I reside in this village. In my village, no one fasts. In this village, a person can beg food from others and thus eat. Some people drink only milk, but if a person does not ask anyone for food, I supply him all his edibles. The women who come here to take water saw you, and they supplied me with this milk and sent me to you. I must go very soon to milk the cows, but I shall return and take back this milk pot from you." Saying this, the boy left the place. Indeed, he suddenly could be seen no more, and Madhavendra Puri's heart was filled with wonder. After drinking the milk, Madhavendra Puri washed the pot and put it aside. He looked toward the path, but the boy never returned. Madhavendra Puri could not sleep. He sat and chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and at the end of the night he dozed a little, and his external activities stopped. In a dream, Madhavendra Puri saw that very same boy. The boy came before him and, holding his hand, took him to a bush in the jungle. The boy showed Madhavendra Puri the bush and said, "I reside in this bush, and because of this I suffer very much from severe cold, rain, showers, winds, and scorching heat. Please bring the people of the village and get them to take me out of this bush. Then have them situate me nicely on the top of the hill. Please construct a temple on top of that hill and install me in that temple. After this, wash me with large quantities of cold water so that my body may be cleansed. For many days I have been observing you, and I have been wondering, when will Madhavendra Puri come here to serve me? I have accepted your service due to your ecstatic love for me. Thus I shall appear
and by my audience all fallen souls will be delivered. My name is Gopal. I am the lifter of Govardhan Hill. I was installed by Vajra, and here I am the authority. When the Mohammedans attacked, the priest who was serving me hid me in this bush in the jungle. Then he ran away out of fear of the attack. Since the priest went away, I have been staying in this bush. It is very good that you have come here. Now just remove me with care."
After saying this, the boy disappeared. Then Madhavendra Puri woke up and began to consider his dream. Madhavendra Puri began to lament.
"I saw Lord Krishna directly, but I could not recognize him."
Thus he fell down on the ground in ecstatic love. Madhavendra Puri cried for some time, but then he fixed his mind on executing the order of Gopal. Thus he became tranquil. After taking his morning bath, Madhavendra Puri entered the village and assembled all the people. Then he spoke as follows. "The proprietor of this village, Govardhan Dari, is lying in the bushes. Let us go there and rescue him from that place. The bushes are very dense, and we will not be able to enter the jungle. Therefore take choppers and spades to clear the way." After hearing this, all the people accompanied Madhavendra Puri with great pleasure. According to his directions, they cut down bushes, cleared a path, and entered the jungle. When they saw the deity covered with dirt and grass, they were all struck with wonder and pleasure. After they cleansed the body of the deity, one of them said, "The deity is very heavy. No one person can move him." Since the deity was very heavy, some of the stronger men assembled to carry him to the top of the hill. Madhavendra Puri also went there. A big stone was made into a throne, and the deity was installed upon it. Another big stone was placed behind the deity for support. All the Brahmin priests of the village gathered together with 9 water pots, and water from Govindakund Lake was brought there and filtered. When the deity was being installed, 900 pots of water were brought from Govindakund. There were musical sounds of bugles and drums, and the singing of women. During the festival at the installation ceremony, some people sang, and some danced. All the milk, yogurt, and clarified butter in the village was brought to the festival. Various foods and sweetmeats, as well as other kinds of presentations, were brought there. I am unable to describe all these. The villagers brought a large quantity of tulsi leaves, flowers, and various kinds of garments. Then Sri Madhavendra Puri personally began the Abhishek or bathing ceremony. After all inauspicious things were driven away by the chanting of the mantra, the deity's bathing ceremony started. First, the deity was massaged with a large quantity of oil, so that his body became very glossy. After the first bathing, further bathings were conducted with Panchagavya, and then with Panchamrita. Then the Mahasnana was performed with ghee and water, which had been brought in 100 pots. The ingredients of Panchagavya are milk, yogurt, ghee or clarified butter, cow urine, and cow dung. All these items come from the cow. Therefore, we can just imagine how important the cow is, since its urine and stool are required for bathing the deity. The Panchamrita consists of 5 kinds of nectar: yogurt, milk, ghee, honey, and sugar. The major portion of this preparation also comes from the cow. To make it more palatable, sugar and honey are added. After the Mahasnana was finished, the deity was again massaged with scented oil, and his body made glossy. Then the last bathing ceremony was performed with scented water kept within a conch shell. After the body of the deity was cleansed, he was dressed very nicely with new garments. Then sandalwood pulp, tulsi garlands, and other fragrant flower garlands were placed upon the body of the deity. After the bathing ceremony was finished, incense and lamps were burned, and all kinds of food offered before the deity. These foods included yogurt, milk, and as many sweetmeats as were received. The deity was first offered many varieties of food, then scented drinking water in new pots, and then water for washing the mouth. Finally, pan, mixed with a variety of spices, was offered. After the last offering of tambula and pan, Bhog Artik was performed. Finally, everyone offered various prayers, and then obeisances, falling flat before the deity in full surrender. As soon as the people of the village had understood that the deity was going to be installed, they had brought their entire stocks of rice, dal, and wheat flour. They brought such large quantities that the entire surface of the top of the hill was filled. When the villagers brought their stock of rice, dal, and flour, the potters of the village brought all kinds of cooking pots, and in the morning the cooking began. 10 Brahmins cooked the food grains, and 5 Brahmins cooked both dry and liquid vegetables. The vegetable preparations were made from various kinds of spinach, roots and fruits collected from the forest, and someone had made bada and badi by mashing dal. In this way the Brahmins prepared all kinds of food. 5 to 7 men had prepared a huge quantity of chapatis, which were sufficiently covered with ghee, as were all the vegetables, rice, and dal. All the cooked rice was stacked on palas leaves, which were on new cloths spread over the ground. Around the stack of cooked rice were stacks of chapatis, and all the vegetables and liquid vegetable preparations were placed in different pots and put around them. Pots of yogurt, milk, buttermilk, and sikarni, sweet rice, cream, and solid cream were placed alongside the vegetables. In this way the Anukut ceremony was performed, and Madhavendra Puri Goswami personally offered everything to Gopal. Many water pots were filled with scented water for drinking, and Lord Sri Gopal, who had been hungry for many days, ate everything offered to him. Although Sri Gopal ate everything offered, still, by the touch of his transcendental hand, everything remained as before. How Gopal ate everything while the food remained the same was transcendentally perceived by Madhavendra Puri Goswami. Nothing remains a secret to the devotees of the Lord. The wonderful festival and installation of Sri Gopalji was arranged in one day. Certainly all this was accomplished by the potency of Gopal. No one but a devotee can understand this. Madhavendra Puri offered water to Gopal for washing his mouth, and he gave him betel nuts to chew. Then, while Arti was performed, all the people chanted, "Jai, Jai, all glories to Gopal." Arranging for the Lord's rest, Sri Madhavendra Puri brought a new cot, and over this he spread a new bedspread, and thus made the bed ready. A temporary temple was constructed by covering the bed all around with a straw mattress. Thus there was a bed and a straw mattress to cover it. After the Lord was laid down to rest on the bed, Madhavendra Puri gathered all the Brahmins who had prepared the prasad and said to them, "Now feed everyone sumptuously, from the children on up to the aged." All the people gathered there sat down to honor the prasad, and by they took food. All the Brahmins and their wives were fed first. Not only did the people of Govardhan village take prasad, but also those who came from other villages. They also saw the deity of Gopal and were offered prasad to eat. Seeing the influence of Madhavendra Puri, all the people gathered there were struck with wonder. They saw that the Anukut ceremony, which had been performed before during the time of Krishna, was now taking place again by the mercy of Sri Madhavendra Puri. All the Brahmins present on that occasion were initiated by Madhavendra Puri into the Vaishnava cult, and Madhavendra Puri engaged them in different types of service. After taking rest, the deity must be awakened at the end of the day, and immediately some food and water must be offered to him. When it was advertised throughout the country that Lord Gopal had appeared atop Govardhan Hill, all the people from neighboring villages came to see the deity. One village after another was pleased to beg Madhavendra Puri to allot them one day to perform the Anukut ceremony. Thus, day after day, the Anukut ceremony was performed for some time. Sri Madhavendra Puri did not eat anything throughout the day, but at night, after laying the deity down to rest, he took a milk preparation. The next morning, the rendering of service to the deity began again, and people from one village arrived with all kinds of food grains. The inhabitants of the village brought to the deity of Gopal as much food grains, ghee, yogurt, and milk as they had in their village. The next day, almost like before, was an Anukut ceremony. All the Brahmins prepared foodstuffs, and Gopal accepted them. The ideal place to execute Krishna consciousness is Vrajabhumi, or Vrindavan, where the people are naturally inclined to love Krishna, and Krishna is naturally inclined to love them. Throngs of people came from different villages to see the deity of Gopal, and they took Mahaprasad sumptuously. When they saw the super-excellent form of Lord Gopal, all their lamentation and unhappiness disappeared. All the villages in neighboring Vrajabhumi became aware of the appearance of Gopal, and all the people from these villages came to see him. Day after day they all performed the Anukut ceremony. In this way, not only the neighboring villages, but all the other provinces came to know of Gopal's appearance. Thus people came from all over, bringing a variety of presentations. The people of Mathura, who are very big capitalists, also brought various presentations and offered them before the deity in devotional service. Thus countless presentations of gold, silver, garments, scented articles, and edibles arrived. The store of Gopal increased daily. One very rich kshatriya of the royal order constructed a temple. Someone made cooking utensils, and someone constructed boundary walls. Each and every family residing in the land of Vrajabhumi contributed one cow. In this way, thousands of cows became the property of Gopal. Eventually, 2 Brahmins in the renounced order arrived from Bengal, and Madhavendra Puri, who liked them very much, kept them in Vrindavan and gave them all kinds of comforts. These 2 were then initiated by Madhavendra Puri, and he entrusted them with the daily service of the Lord. This service was performed continuously, and the worship of the deity became very gorgeous. Thus Madhavendra Puri was very pleased. In this way, the deity worship in the temple was very gorgeously performed for 2 years. Then one day, Madhavendra Puri had a dream. In his dream, Madhavendra Puri saw Gopal, who said,
My bodily temperature still has not decreased. Please bring sandalwood from the Malaya province and smear the pulp over my body to cool me. Bring sandalwood pulp from Jagannath Puri. Kindly go quickly. Since no one else can do it, you must.
Having this dream, Madhavendra Puri Goswami became very glad due to ecstasy of love of Godhead. And in order to execute the command of the Lord, he started east toward Bengal. Before leaving, Madhavendra Puri made all arrangements for regular deity worship, and he engaged different people in various duties. Then, taking up the order of Gopal, he started for Bengal. When Madhavendra Puri arrived at the house of Advaitacharya in Santipur, the Acharya became very pleased upon seeing the ecstatic love of Godhead manifest in Madhavendra Puri. Advaita Acharya begged to be initiated by Madhavendra Puri. After initiating him, Madhavendra Puri started for South India. Going into South India, Sri Madhavendra Puri visited Remuna, where Gopinath is situated. Upon seeing the beauty of the deity, Madhavendra Puri was overwhelmed. In the corridor of the temple, from which people generally viewed the deity, Madhavendra Puri chanted and danced. Then he sat down there and asked the Brahmin what kind of foods they offered to the deity. From the excellence of the arrangements, Madhavendra Puri understood by deduction that only the best food was offered. Madhavendra Puri thought, I shall inquire from the priest what foods are offered to Gopinath, so that by making arrangements in our kitchen, we can offer similar foods to Sri Gopal. When the Brahmin priest was questioned in this matter, he explained in detail what kinds of foods were offered to the deity of Gopinath. The Brahmin priest said, In the evening, the deity is offered sweet rice in 12 earthen pots. Because the taste is as good as nectar, it is named Amrita Keli. This sweet rice is celebrated throughout the world as Gopinath Kshira. It is not offered anywhere else in the world. While Madhavendra Puri was talking with the Brahmin priest, the sweet rice was placed before the deity as an offering. Hearing this, Madhavendra Puri thought as follows, If, without my asking, a little sweet rice is given to me, I can then taste it and make a similar preparation to offer my Lord Gopal. Madhavendra Puri became greatly ashamed when he desired to taste the sweet rice, and he immediately began to think of Lord Vishnu. While he was thus thinking of Lord Vishnu, the offering was completed and the arti ceremony began. After the arti was finished, Madhavendra Puri offered his obeisances to the deity and then left the temple. He did not say anything more to anyone. Madhavendra Puri avoided begging. He was completely unattached and indifferent to material things. He would not beg. If someone offered him some food, he would eat. Otherwise, he would fast. A Paramahamsa, like Madhavendra Puri, is always satisfied in the loving service of the Lord. Material hunger and thirst cannot impede his activities. When he desired to taste a little sweet rice offered to the deity, he considered that he had committed an offense by desiring to eat what was being offered to the deity. Madhavendra Puri left the temple and sat down in the village marketplace, which was vacant. Sitting there, he began to chant. In the meantime, the temple priest laid the deity down to rest. Finishing his daily duties, the priest went to take rest. In a dream, he saw the Gopinath deity come to talk to him, and he spoke as follows.
please get up and open the door of the temple. I have kept one pot of sweet rice for the sannyasi Madhavendra Puri. This pot of sweet rice is just behind my cloth curtain. You did not see it because of my tricks. A sannyasi named Madhavendra Puri is sitting in the vacant marketplace. Please take this pot of sweet rice from behind me and deliver it to him."
Awaking from the dream, the priest immediately rose from the bed and thought it wise to take a bath before entering the deity's room. He then opened the temple door. According to the deity's directions, the priest found the pot of sweet rice behind the cloth curtain. He removed the pot and mopped up the place where it had been kept. He then went out of the temple. Closing the door of the temple, he went to the village with the pot of sweet rice. He called out in every stall in search of Madhavendra Puri. Holding the pot of sweet rice, the priest called, "Will he whose name is Madhavendra Puri come and take this pot? Gopinath has stolen this pot for you. Will the sannyasi whose name is Madhavendra Puri please come and take this pot of sweet rice and enjoy the prasad with great happiness? You are the most fortunate person within these three worlds." Hearing this invitation, Madhavendra Puri came out and identified himself. The priest then delivered the pot of sweet rice and offered his obeisances, falling flat before him. When the story about the pot of sweet rice was explained to him in detail, Sri Madhavendra Puri at once became absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna. Upon seeing the ecstatic loving symptoms manifest in Madhavendra Puri, the priest was struck with wonder. He could understand why Krishna had become so much obliged to him, and he saw that Krishna's action was befitting. The priest offered his obeisances to Madhavendra Puri and returned to the temple. Then, in ecstasy, Madhavendra Puri ate the sweet rice offered to him by Krishna. After this, Madhavendra Puri washed the pot and broke it into pieces. He then bound all the pieces in his outer cloth and kept them nicely. Each day, Madhavendra Puri would eat one piece of that earthen pot, and after eating it, he would immediately be overwhelmed with ecstasy. These are wonderful stories. Having broken the pot and bound the pieces in his cloth, Madhavendra Puri began to think, "The Lord has given me a pot of sweet rice, and when the people hear of this tomorrow morning, there will be great crowds." Thinking this, Sri Madhavendra Puri offered his obeisances to Gopinath on the spot and left Remuna before morning. Walking and walking, Madhavendra Puri finally reached Jagannath Puri, which is also known as Nilachal. There he saw Lord Jagannath and was overwhelmed with loving ecstasy. When Madhavendra Puri was overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead, he sometimes stood up and sometimes fell to the ground. Sometimes he laughed, danced, and sang. In this way, he enjoyed transcendental bliss by seeing the Jagannath deity. When Madhavendra Puri came to Jagannath Puri, people were aware of his transcendental reputation. Therefore, crowds of people came and offered him all sorts of respect in devotion. Even though one may not like it, reputation, as ordained by Providence, comes to him. Indeed, one's transcendental reputation is known throughout the entire world. Being afraid of his reputation, Madhavendra Puri fled from Remuna. But the reputation brought by love of Godhead is so sublime that it goes along with the devotee as if following him. Madhavendra Puri wanted to leave Jagannath Puri because the people were honoring him as a great devotee. However, this threatened to hinder his collecting sandalwood for the Gopal deity. Sri Madhavendra Puri told all the servants of Lord Jagannath and all the great devotees there the story of the appearance of Sri Gopal. When all the devotees at Jagannath Puri heard that the Gopal deity wanted sandalwood, in great pleasure they all endeavored to collect it. Those who were acquainted with government officers met with them and begged for camphor and sandalwood, which they collected. One Brahmin and one servant were given to Madhavendra Puri just to carry the sandalwood. He was also given the necessary traveling expenses. To get past the toll collectors along the way, Madhavendra Puri was supplied with the necessary release papers from government officers. The papers were placed in his hand. In this way, Madhavendra Puri started for Vrindavan with the burden of sandalwood, and after some days he again reached the village of Remuna and the Gopinath temple there. When Madhavendra Puri reached the temple of Gopinath, he offered his respectful obeisances many times at the lotus feet of the Lord. In the ecstasy of love, he began to dance and sing without cessation. When the priest of Gopinath saw Madhavendra Puri again, he offered all respects to him and, giving him the sweet rice prasad, made him eat. Madhavendra Puri took rest that night in the temple, but toward the end of the night he had another dream. Madhavendra Puri dreamed that Gopal came before him and said,
"O Madhavendra Puri, I have already received all the sandalwood and camphor. Now just grind all the sandalwood together with the camphor, and then smear the pulp on the body of Gopinath daily until it is finished. There is no difference between my body and Gopinath's body. They are one and the same. Therefore, if you smear the sandalwood pulp on the body of Gopinath, you will naturally also smear it on my body. Thus the temperature of my body will be reduced. You should not hesitate to act according to my order. Believing in me, just do what is needed."
After giving these instructions, Gopal disappeared, and Madhavendra Puri awoke. He immediately called for all the servants of Gopinath, and they came before him. Madhavendra Puri said, "Smear the body of Gopinath with this camphor and sandalwood I have brought for Gopal in Vrindavan. Do this regularly every day. If the sandalwood pulp is smeared over the body of Gopinath, then Gopal will be cooled. After all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely independent. His order is all-powerful." The servants of Gopinath became very pleased to hear that in the summer all the sandalwood pulp would be used to anoint the body of Gopinath. Madhavendra Puri said, "These two assistants will regularly grind the sandalwood, and you should also get 2 other people to help. I shall pay their salary." In this way, Gopinathji was supplied ground sandalwood pulp daily. The servants of Gopinath were very pleased with this. In this way, the sandalwood pulp was smeared over the body of Gopinath until the whole stock was finished. Madhavendra Puri stayed there until that time. At the end of summer, Madhavendra Puri returned to Jagannath Puri, where he remained with great pleasure during the whole period of Chaturmasya. Thus Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu personally praised the nectarian characteristics of Madhavendra Puri, and while he related all this to the devotees, he personally relished it. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu asked Nityananda Prabhu to judge whether there was anyone within the world as fortunate as Madhavendra Puri. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Madhavendra Puri was so fortunate that Krishna personally appeared before him on the plea of delivering milk. 3 times the Lord gave orders to Madhavendra Puri in dreams. Being obliged because of the loving affairs of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Krishna himself appeared as the Gopal deity, and accepting his service, he liberated the whole world. On account of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Gopinath stole the pot of sweet rice. Thus he became famous as Kshira Kora, the thief who stole the sweet rice. Madhavendra Puri smeared the sandalwood pulp over the body of Gopinath, and in this way he was overpowered with love of Godhead. In the provinces of India governed by the Mohammedans, there was much inconvenience in traveling with sandalwood and camphor. Because of this, Madhavendra Puri might have gotten into trouble. This became known to the Gopal deity. The Lord is very merciful and attached to his devotees, so when Gopinath was covered with sandalwood pulp, Madhavendra Puri's labor became successful. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed the standard of Madhavendra Puri's intense love before Nityananda Prabhu for judgment. All his loving activities are uncommon, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Indeed, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. Sri Madhavendra Puri used to remain alone. He was completely renounced and always very silent. He was uninterested in everything material, and for fear of talking about mundane things, he always lived without a companion. After receiving the transcendental orders of Gopal, this great personality traveled thousands of miles just to collect sandalwood by begging. Although Madhavendra Puri was hungry, he would not beg for food to eat. This renounced person carried a load of sandalwood for the sake of Sri Gopal. Without considering his personal comforts, Madhavendra Puri carried 1 mound, or about 82 pounds of sandalwood, and 20 tolers, or about 8 ounces of camphor, to smear over the body of Gopal. This transcendental pleasure was sufficient for him. Since there were restrictions against taking the sandalwood out of the Orissa province, the toll official confiscated the stock. But Madhavendra Puri showed him the release papers given by the government and consequently escaped difficulties. Madhavendra Puri was not at all anxious during the long journey to Vrindavan through the provinces governed by the Mohammedans and filled with unlimited numbers of watchmen. Although Madhavendra Puri did not have a farthing with him, he was not afraid to pass by the toll officers. His only enjoyment was in carrying the load of sandalwood to Vrindavan for Gopal. This is the natural result of intense love of Godhead. The devotee does not consider personal inconveniences or impediments. In all circumstances, he wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Gopal wanted to show how intensely Madhavendra Puri loved Krishna. Therefore he asked him to go to Nilachal to fetch sandalwood and camphor. With great trouble and after much labor, Madhavendra Puri brought the load of sandalwood to Remuna. However, he was still very pleased. He discounted all the difficulties. To test the intense love of Madhavendra Puri, Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ordered him to bring sandalwood from Nilachal, and when Madhavendra Puri passed this examination, the Lord became very merciful to him. Such behavior exhibited in loving service between the devotee and the devotee's lovable object, Sri Krishna, is transcendental. It is not possible for a common man to understand. Common men do not even have the capacity. After saying this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. That verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. By continuous rubbing, the aroma of Malaya sandalwood increases. Similarly, by considering this verse, its importance increases. As the Kaustuba Mani is considered the most precious of valuable stones, this verse is similarly considered the best of mellow poems. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself, and by her mercy only was it manifest in the words of Madhavendra Puri. Only Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tasted the poetry of this verse. No fourth man is capable of understanding it. Madhavendra Puri recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. He said, "O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now?" When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited this verse, he immediately fell to the ground unconscious. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell to the ground in ecstatic love, Lord Nityananda took him on his lap. Crying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then got up again. Exhibiting ecstatic emotions, the Lord began to run here and there, making resounding noises. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried, and sometimes danced and sang. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not recite the whole verse. He simply said, "Ayedina, Ayedina," repeatedly. Thus he could not speak, and profuse tears were in his eyes. Trembling, perspiration, jubilant tears, shock, fading of the bodily luster, disappointment, moroseness, loss of memory, pride, joy, and humility were all visible in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and when it was exhibited, all the servants of Gopinath saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance in ecstasy. When people crowded around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he regained his external senses. In the meantime, the offering to the deity had been finished, and there was a resounding arti performance. When the deities were laid down to rest, the priest came out of the temple and offered all 12 pots of sweet rice to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When all the pots of sweet rice, remnants left by Gopinath, were placed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very pleased. In order to feed the devotees, he accepted 5 of them. The 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priest. Then the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed among the 5 devotees, and they, being identical with the Gopinath deity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already tasted and eaten the pots of sweet rice. Yet just to manifest devotional service, he again ate the pots of sweet rice as a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night at the temple, engaged in congregational chanting. In the morning, after seeing the Mangal Arti performance, he departed. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally tasted with his own mouth the transcendental qualities of Gopalji, Gopinath, and Sri Madhavendra Puri. Thus I have described both the transcendental glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection for his devotees and the highest limit of ecstatic love of God.
One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Caitanya Cartamrita, following in their footsteps.
Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
This ends Chapter 4 of the Madhya-lila, Sri Madhavendra Puri's devotional service.